We've got Sarah Willie. I'm Chris Smith. We wanted to talk a little bit about a new case that just came out. The Oklahoma Court of Civil Appeals just ruled in the case of Heller v. Ballinger. It was a published opinion that came out on February 16th. It was a very important case for our practice and our firm because Sarah Willie tried the case at the trial court level. It was a contested adoption. And then we took the case up on appeal on behalf of the father of the child. And the Court of Civil Appeals just issued the opinion in favor of our client. And so I wanted to talk to Sarah a little bit today and get her initial opinion, and then get us a little background as to a contested adoption, because I think it's a good example of clients that we've represented in these situations. And so, Sarah, welcome. Tell us a little bit about the trial and the background of the case and kind of where it came from and how it proceeded.
Sure. So this is a case out of Oklahoma County. You have a biological mother and the stepfather wanting to adopt the minor child. The stepfather wants to adopt this minor child. We represent a biological father who was not wanting to consent. In most cases, consent is going to be required, but the law does provide that individuals can still file for adoption without consent, and that's what this case was. The occasions where consent is not necessary are specifically defined, and one of those occasions is where you've had what we call a lack of substantial contact or a lack of parenting rights and responsibilities, exercising those duties. And that's what the petitioners in this case, the Ballingers, applied for on the basis of that particular case. So they were saying that father had not exercised basically time with the child, hadn't exercised that substantial relationship. We had evidence, in our opinion, to show that he had, that while his relationship with his child may not have been perfect, it was certainly there, and it certainly existed and needed to be protected. The law protects a parent's right to their child. It's a fundamental constitutional right, and that's why adoptions are so strict. They're one of the most stringent, in terms of looking at how the Constitution looks at the level of what you have to look at in an adoption. It's clear and convincing evidence that's required to proceed in an adoption case. And we felt at the trial court level that they didn't have that. The trial court judge felt otherwise, and she went ahead and allowed this adoption to proceed without father's consent. And so it was brought up on appeal because we did feel like we had a good appellate case.
And this was filed, the adoption itself was filed in January of 2021. And as you stated, the mother alleged that father had failed to maintain a meaningful relationship with the child. But the 12 months prior to this were basically dominated by COVID. So this was a period of time in which COVID had kept travel, made travel difficult, had kept the father away. The father was also working in the Gulf Coast on a ship. And so his travel schedule was difficult. But one of the things that's important to remember in this case, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, he had maintained child support. He was current on child support. He had also maintained phone contact and regular contact. And so this was not a situation where father had just not been involved and had just acquiesced his relationship. And so I think that's important for any father out there to remember too, that you do have to maintain child support. You do have to maintain and attempt contact and continue to do those things that are necessary to show that you want to continue that relationship. And this father did, correct?
Yes. He was current on child support. He paid every month. Father was a underwater welder in the Gulf of Mexico. And so you're absolutely right. Travel was difficult. At times, phone contact was difficult, but he made attempts. He FaceTimed, text, messaged, and did have an in-person visit. And the law, sort of provides some guidance on what a substantial and meaningful relationship with your child is. And we felt we more than met that burden. And the petitioners felt as though that he was doing the bare minimum, so to speak. But we certainly felt that there was more than that there. Sending gifts to your child, letters to your child, phone calls, all that can go towards the evidence you need to demonstrate having a substantial and meaningful relationship. And also, part of what goes into the analysis is also exercising parental rights and duties. So, engaging with the other parent to talk about how you're going to parent your child. That goes into the analysis as well. And we felt that existed here.
So the trial court ruled against father and said the adoption can proceed. Then we took that up on appeal and asked this appellate court to overturn that decision. And that's what the Court of Civil Appeals did. And they, in their review, they affirmed the fact that a parent's fundamental right to the care, custody, and companionship and management of his or her child is a right protected by the United States and Oklahoma constitutions. And so that's an important aspect of this case, that it reaffirms that constitutional protection as to the parent-child relationship. And then also that the parent who is not the adopting parent, so it would be the parent, in this case, it was the father, they have to consent to that child's adoption. They reiterated that that's an important element. Parent has to consent, the natural parent has to consent before the step parent can adopt. And then also they basically said, in this case, the mother has failed to present clear and convincing evidence to overturn that or overcome that presumption for consent. And so basically the appellate court sustained and our motion or our request to overturn that case and affirmed our position at trial. I think that you looked at that opinion as the attorney who tried that case, and you felt good about the trial arguments that you made, and it really went, in line with a lot of the things that you argued at trial, I think.
That's right. Yeah, I think that when you present the argument at trial and you feel that you did a good job, it's hard when you get the opposite result. But it was good to have this ruling on appeal. I think that the appellate court saw what we saw at trial. And I think that the truth is the standard for adoptions is a much higher standard than what you're going to see in any divorce case, any paternity case. It is clear and convincing evidence. There must be a lot of evidence there, because you are taking away a parent's right to their child. And so that's something that is very highly protected. And the appellate court did a great job of reviewing the record on appeal and reviewing the case law that was presented and reversing the opinion, which is what we wanted.
And as an aside, before we get off here, I will say I know I watched you post trial. I know that you took that case very hard, that loss at the trial level, and so getting that appeal overturned was a relief. I know I watched you, because anytime you're representing a parent who's trying to maintain a relationship with their child and they get that taken away, it's a very, very difficult thing as the attorney. And so we really took this case to heart, and we made it, we try not to make it too personal, but I mean, anytime you're representing a parent who's trying to maintain a relationship and they lose that, it's personal, and you feel that. And so in this case, I know you did, and I'm really excited that we were able to prevail at the appellate level. And so congratulations on that, Sarah. Good job. And if anyone has a similar issue, and we represent both sides of this issue, correct. We, as a firm, will represent the parent who's seeking an adoption, whether it be a step-parent adoption or they're attempting to adopt a child. But then also we will contest that adoption if we're representing a father or a mother who wants to object to the adoption itself. We will, we'll represent that side, and I think that's critical to be able to just make sure that the law is followed. And so as we leave here, someone who's looking for an attorney to represent them in a contested adoption, what would you say to them?
I'd say I think that we can help. Certainly, we do both sides. I think we try our best. It's a complicated area of law, and I think, as evidenced by the opinion that just came out, it's certainly ever changing. In being complicated, it's something that both judges and attorneys have to keep up on, have to stay knowledgeable about, and so we try to do our best in being educated, being well aware of recent updates. And the other thing, too, that anybody who either wants to proceed with an adoption or wants to contest it needs to know is it's going to be a lengthy process. And so you want to have any attorney be somebody that you trust and know that they're going to be in it with you for the long haul. And that may mean an appeal. So we would be happy to help anybody or happy to talk with them about their issue. And we'd be happy to help.